My name is Nicole with So Much More. In this video, I'll be making two different mug rugs, the first with a Cricut machine and the second with a fun rainbow design. While you're watching, if you see something that you like, please give me a thumbs up on this video and subscribe to my channel. Head over to my website, get your PDF pattern and materials list. The link is in the description. Now let's get started making some Lucky Clover mug rugs. For our first mug rug, we'll use the Cricut Machine to add this fun text design to our Lucky Clover mug rug. Now I found this text design on the Cricut Design Space. It was a free pattern and I think it's just perfect for this mug rug. I adjusted the size of the design so it would fit nicely on the square piece of fabric. I adjusted the pressure to be more, even though I'm only using the iron-on vinyl. And I don't want to forget to mirror my image. I always forget to do that. So I put my shiny vinyl right side down on my Cricut mat. I load up my mat and let the cutting begin. Using my Cricut weeding tool, I removed the excess vinyl from the carrier sheet. This design has quite a few areas that need weeding, so I like to use my Daylight Company LightBox to help me see the areas that need attention. I love my LightBox for a variety of things in my sewing room, and weeding is just one of them. To learn more about this LightBox, head over to the link in the description. Take your vinyl text design and center it on your project. I like to use a small Teflon sheet to cover the project before I apply the heat from my iron. I carefully remove the carrier sheet, and that turned out super cute. Let's set that aside and work on a mug rug that doesn't require using the Cricut machine. This is a rainbow design that's super simple to achieve. Just grab some rainbow fabrics like the ones that I have in my online shop. I've cut these into 1-inch strips and sewed them together in rainbow order. Now altogether I made 3 sets of these strips and sewed them together to make a complete rainbow panel. After I sew them all together, I use my Oliso iron and I press the seams open. Now I can get my seams really flat when I use a hot iron, a wool pressing mat, and I also like to use the Best Press spray starch as well. In order to get an easy diagonal layout, get a ruler that has a 45-degree mark and lay it against the bottom edge of your rainbow panel. Make the first cut at a 45-degree angle and then measure your next cut 5.5 inches perpendicular to that. You'll be basically making a 5.5-inch square to match your finished Lucky Clover quilt block. Now sew your rainbow panel design and your clover block together to make your next mug rug. Now it's time to quilt your mug rugs. Lay your backing fabric wrong side up and cover this with some batting. I'm using some leftover batting from a quilt I'd recently finished. Since I've made several mug rugs, I'm going to be laying these all out at the same time. This helps me to eliminate waste. Next, I'm going to spray some fabric adhesive to help keep my mug rugs in place while I prepare to quilt them. Now, once I have these in place, I'll take my acrylic ruler and rotary cutter and separate these into single units. While I'm cutting these out, I'm careful to leave a small excess of fabric around the perimeter of each mug rug. I'd say about 1 inch or so will do just fine. Now you can quilt these mug rugs any way that you'd like, but I think an easy solution is to draw a 1-inch grid with a chalk marker. These refillable chalk pens are super handy and come in a variety of chalk colors. Quilting along the chalk mark is super easy. I use a 3-inch stitch length and a 50 weight cotton thread. Since these lines are already marked, you can quilt these up in no time. Take your acrylic ruler and rotary cutter to trim off the excess batting and backing. For the binding, I simply cut a width of fabric by 2 1/4 and then folded and pressed it in half. Leaving about a 6-inch tail at the beginning, I stitched the binding to the perimeter of the mug rug, being sure to miter each corner as demonstrated. I like using my 1/4-inch presser foot for attaching the binding. I also like using a stiletto to help manage the thread when it comes to the corners. When we come to about 6 inches from where we started, simply stop sewing, and then we're going to connect the 2 ends of our binding strips. Bring your longest binding strip and nest it next to the beginning seam of the shortest strip. And using a friction pin, make a mark at this nesting point and cut the longest strip at the mark. Now measure the opposite strip to your original binding width. Remember, mine was 2 1/4 inches. Mark this and trim that strip. Then start removing stitches from your shortest binding strip until both strips are unsewn evenly. Fold your project right sides together and place a clip about 1 inch back from the starting seams. Open and align the strips as demonstrated. And I like to make a mark to help determine where my sewing lines need to be. And I'm using a 1x6 acrylic ruler and a friction pin for this. Use sewing pins to hold your strips in place and stitch the 2 strips together. Then take out your clip and ensure the strip is the right length before you trim off the excess fabric. I'm using a seam roller to open this seam. You can also use an iron. Now stitch the remaining binding to your project. Trim the excess from the corners, being careful not to cut the binding strips. The last thing to do is to finish the binding. You can either do this by hand or by machine. It's really up to your personal preference. Now, I have video tutorials on both techniques, so head over to the description for those links. These Lucky Clover Mug Rugs ended up being the perfect little project to make. You can make them for your family, you can make them for your friends. I might even save one for myself. Thanks so much for watching. If you loved watching this video, please like it and subscribe to my channel. If you want more DIY, go to the link in the description and sign up for my newsletter. Each week, I send inspiration directly to your inbox. For more tutorials, head over to my website and Facebook group, where there is always so much more in store.